So before we get back to our content, just a quick update. So I did put in your exam grades. I'll put some more information in there. What happened overall is that for the most part, the multiple choice were really not great. So from your free response, you put anything more than what I was looking for. I just kind of gave you extra points for that. The other thing I'm going to do, since in the syllabus we had quizzes and then I ended up not really assigning you any quizzes, that's kind of on me. So I'm just going to put that into the grade book as like buffer room. So you'll just get credit for that block of stuff because yeah, it's not on you that I didn't assign them. Okay, so stay tuned for those updates. If you want to go over your specific exams, I have those and I talk through them. Yeah.
So, with the like testing on Friday,
Mhm.
would it be possible to get like the at least what we've been through up until now before the weekend or on the weekend to study early?
Yeah, totally.
And because like
And I can get you the slides early too, now that we're actually doing stuff I actually study.
Yeah. No,
I can get you that stuff early.
Like,
yeah.
I have to take another exam and a quiz next week, so it'd be nice to be able to study like block for the weekend for different classes.
Yeah, I can totally do that.
If you're able to.
Yeah.
I need stuff. It takes me like too long to not study.
Yeah. As long as I get there, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I think so. I like studying things I can see and touch because I'm secretly a kindergartner at heart. All right. Other questions? Okay, cool. So when we left off, we were talking about our mammalian groups. So we had seen that we have basically three groups of modern mammals. We've got the monotremes, the marsupials, and the eutherians, which are also often called placental mammals, even though that's an old name because marsupials do have like a small placenta at the beginning of their gestational period. Okay. So we talked about how the monotremes are rare, and we have them as our only group that like don't give live birth. They lay soft-shelled eggs, and we learned what a cloaca is. Okay. So monotremes basically got stuck in Australia, which is otherwise really kind of ruled by our next group of marsupials. There are different ideas about how we ended up with the distribution of mammalian groups that we have today. Most continents, basically everywhere except Australia, are dominated by the placental mammals, those eutherians, which is what we're going to get into. Yeah. But Australia has those 5 monotreme species and also has marsupials filling like practically every niche available. So we have ideas about how they were split in our continent and kind of the deep past and where this was all going, trying to figure out what migrations were happening, how basically the monotremes and marsupials ended up stuck on Australia and why we don't really see placental mammals there. So a lot of this stuff is based on molecular data, different types of data, which also makes it kind of tricky to map onto paleocontinents. But we have kind of 3 theories. So a reminder, Gondwana is our southern continent. So if we see Gondwana is like going to peel off, part of it becomes Australia, part of it becomes our our South America and Africa. So in our, I'm going to choose this one at the bottom first, actually. So this one at the bottom suggests that monotremes and marsupials kind of like branched off together and that this happened in Gondwana, which makes sense in terms of like the distribution of physically where these groups are today, but doesn't really account for the closer theoretically relationship between placental mammals and those marsupials. As we saw in the earlier phylogeny, we had them both branching off together because they both give live fur. So you can see that in the top image and that middle image, we have the predicted phylogeny where we have those placentals and marsupials.
Do we have any actual like marsupial in North America?
We do. Anybody have a guess as to what it is?
So like squirrel or something?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Or
Awesome. Yeah.
Or often like the ones that are-
Uh-huh. Yeah, we got like one.
they
Right.
are out of the house, like to sit on the mom's back.
Yeah, and that's part of why we have the question, right? Because like in this top image, we have, okay, placentals and marsupials branching off separately from the monotremes, but then like where the North American marsupials kind of go, like why do we only end up with one left?
So is there not like a theory that the placentals and the monotremes kind of like branched off of it? Or is there like which one came first, kind of like in the broader sense of the three? If they're like kind of related in line, or if they're related more so like they all branched at the same time. That's kind of what I'm.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that suggests that like the placentals branched off of marsupials, although like I see why you're asking
Yeah,
that.
because I feel like they're kind of similar in like when we talk about it,
Mhm.
someone who does have it, potential and fun down.
Right.
So just curious if maybe they're somehow related.
Yeah, if you're looking at this like this relationship, right? Like while crown, so like modern marsupials are separating out from like our modern placental mammals, the eutherians, you
Yeah,
can see that they're like there's like this branch, and it's suggesting that like at this node is where we had that live birth, that placenta, and whatever like evolving and occurring. So I think it would be a decent guess that maybe the ancestral species for both was something sort of marsupial-like potentially,
yeah.
with the exception, right, that like the pouch, right, is not there. There are actually like bones kind of associated with the pouch, so that like you might expect to be able to find it
Oh, there are
existed and then
bones.
disappeared. But yeah, they're epipubic bones, so like bones, like a little bit, but it's not like totally
It's
in the
just like a
pouch. So it's
supportive
just like a
bone?
supportive spot. Yeah. Most things in your body kind of like pull on the skeleton, and you can see kind of marks, even like muscles. It's pretty cool. Like, have you ever been eating like a turkey leg and it seems like there's like an extra bone in it, kind of in the meat? Have you ever done that?
Kind of like cartilage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sort of. But like some tendons like actually just like in certain species or in certain animals like turn into bone even.
Sure.
Like weird stuff can happen like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Oops. Okay. But yeah, so we also have a theory that like this is all happening kind of like at the same place, like on Gondwana, and then like maybe migration out of there, maybe possibly on like different parts of the continent as it's separating. So you got different kind of ideas. They have different types of support. Like a lot of things, it depends kind of on like what evidence you look at and how you kind of piece it together. So marsupials, we've got a little kangaroo sticking its head out of the pouch. Here's our Joey. So the special thing about marsupials is that they are born only days or weeks after fertilization. So they're really underdeveloped. Like imagine being born only days after fertilization occurs. Basically what they need at that point is they need their front limbs to be developed, because what they do is they're going to crawl into the pouch and then attach to nipple or nipple-like structures kind of in the pouch. And so they will continue their development in the pouch. And then once they're ready, leave the pouch, but even sometimes like come back to the pouch for a period of time. So here we can see what that kind of looks like in terms of their reproduction. So here's an example of a kangaroo. So cool thing is like, while they have internal fertilization and they don't lay eggs, if you look inside their bodies, their like eggs inside actually do even have like a tiny bit of a shell, which is crazy to me anyway. So you can see the ovaries up there. You can see an embryo here kind of like pausing. And as gestation continues, that shell kind of disintegrates.
Do they have that like thing, like the one hole? I don't know what it's called, the two thing. The like that.
Like a nice, a cloaca? No,
Yeah.
that's just monitoring.
Okay. Yeah. Is there evidence that they possibly do have it? They have like that egg structure?
Not like in fossils, but it would be soft tissue. In like embryonic development, even when like you develop, there is a period where like those tubes are all connected and then they separate. So like from that perspective, there are points at which that's kind of still somewhere in the genes,
Yeah.
right? It's just we have ones that override it later in development. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That's what I know about them, is the answer. Yeah, so they got a little shell, disintegrates, and then they give birth super fast, basically. So here we see those kangaroos returning to drink milk for pretty long periods of time, actually. So for their distribution, you can see in colors where they are now. So it's showing a couple things in this image. We're showing like our paleocontinents separating, and then in blue and green, we have where you find those marsupials now. And they also have marked on here some like fossils where we have found fossils of like the marsupials. So you can see that we have lots of marsupials here distributed on Australia. You can see that we have marsupials native to South America and then bridging into North America over here. And we also have introduced ranges. So this is like where they describe as invasive species-ish. And one interesting thing, right? Like it's just New Zealand. In terms of like indigenous species, it doesn't actually have any mammals at all. It's all birds. So, yeah, I think okay. So Australian marsupials are quite diverse because that is pretty much what's indigenous to Australia. Most of the placental mammals in Australia were introduced at some point in time. So basically all our ecological niches that we think of like here in Australia are occupied by some form of like native marsupial. So here are some examples, right? We have our familiar kangaroo. We also got like a wombat. We have marsupial mice, got sugar glider, cat, all sorts of stuff. You even have like an apex predator kind of that's a native marsupial of Australia. So this is our Tasmanian tiger, or the thylacine. I am really bummed that they're extinct. There have been reported sightings since 1936, but the question is like, would you be able to tell for sure that it exists? Like if you saw it in the woods, right? Yeah, this is the last one, died in a zoo in 1936. This is a recolorized photo, but this is what they look like, right? Like, so they had stripes like tigers, otherwise look kind of dog-like, but they were marsupials. So they also had pouches. Yeah. Oh, the other thing, I don't think I pulled, I thought I had a picture at some point. One of the theories at some point was that they might have been like outcompeted by like the dingoes. So dingoes been in Australia for a long time, but they originally got there like kind of from Asia, like Southeast Asia. They are placental mammals. And they're of similar size and do like similar things. Yeah.
What is the small, like, you know, there's a kangaroo and then there's a tiny kangaroo? What is that one?
Like
Remember, it's like an outlet or like,
Yeah.
like a baby kangaroo or a different like
No,
species?
like
different species,
Like
but they're not
how
called
small? Like wallabies?
wallabies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about
They're
it,
cool.
but I couldn't.
Yeah. Wallabies. We also didn't have a picture of like koalas on here, but koalas are cool. They sit all day in the tree eating eucalyptus leaves and apparently actually kind of like get drunk on the eucalyptus leaves. Like there's like an intensive like fermentation process so that they can process those. Yeah, which explains some of like how they are.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought they would be soft, but I held one in there, not soft either.
And like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of fun.
There's like I did a whole project on like how it's like chlamydia.
Yeah.
Wait, tell us more.
Uh,
I know they have chlamydia.
So essentially, like once they get birth,
Mhm.
um, the like baby has to eat the poop
Mhm.
from half of
Mhm.
like the adult because it can't digest anything else.
Mhm.
And so like once like it has this, like once the adult has chlamydia, that's
Mhm.
right
It
at the
passes
younger
out those
generation.
babies. Yeah.
So then like essentially like, there's just a huge like
Yeah.
chlamydia outbreak because like once they get it, they cannot cure it and like so generations.
Does it like hurt the koalas?
I don't remember what it like. I just remember there's like a whole like restoration project right now that they're like trying to fund where they're putting like artificial leaves together
Mhm.
that like the babies are able to eat.
Huh. Okay.
So and like testing them and like it's like projecting
Nice.
like that
That's
like
red.
68% of all koalas have chlamydia.
Does it spread to other species?
I think it said that. I think it was it's kind of like a hard thing because then it would have to be like crossbreeding. I think it's like that.
I would agree with it, like in the food and then like other animals
Mm-hmm.
food that then you could like.
I don't know. I don't know if they're different strains or not, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wrote a paper in
like,
college
baby
on
has to eat
whale herpes, which I'm pretty sure I failed because that's not what the paper was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be an immunology paper, but like I went down a rabbit hole. But it's like it was cool.
It's
Kind
kind
of
of
flawless.
we were discussing it and
Mm, mhm.
four out of four.
Yeah.
And like they're making these like plastic trees too because of the wildfires that happened in Australia like years ago because they can't get these electric smoke cooking up anymore.
Why wouldn't they just go out and like give the koalas antibiotics?
I think that's kind of a part of the method.
Okay.
It's developing like this, but then it's also like you have to try to track them down and not really like friendly.
Yes,
Like,
I do remember that.
so and then it's kind of a whole
Yeah.
issue with that.
Yeah.
Well, like apparently they get
It just seems like that would be easier than like
there are
take
like white-tailed
trees.
deer out there. Apparently, like they get hit by cars.
And if you can't get them to get chlamydia from them by holding them and stuff, but you can get it from their teeth,
Yeah.
which is
I bet. I wonder if you're more likely to end up with it like in your eye or something, right? Like if you pick up the poop
it
or
says
by
that
accident and then wipe your eye. Yeah.
I just know that they get hit by like cars 24/7, and they were like also discussed with like basically the ones that we are out there, like insurance companies pay for.
That's funny because like they're on all the postcards. That's right. They at least keep from afar. Yeah. Yeah. So they're marsupials.
specific reason that Australia has like crazy like insect things like like compared to other countries, like you always hear about like
Mhm.
the outbreak
How everything is
of
trying to
Australia,
kill you in
everything's
Australia.
that like happens like how like hearing like constant stress or how everything broke off just because of what that were before. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's stuff everywhere that you always hear about Australia and how that.
Yeah. I don't know the official answer, but I would suspect that like partially that, right? Like Australia has been isolated kind of for a long time. And yeah, so there like wasn't much migration from anywhere else. And there weren't humans for a large portion of time, right? So I wonder if it has something to do with that, right? Like it got more deadly and deadly and deadly. And also it's a pretty harsh environment too, right? Like the livable parts of Australia are really just kind of on the coast. And by livable, like we're still talking like well, yeah, but I'm also thinking like temperature and environment, right? Like it's like road melting temperatures on a somewhat regular basis in many parts of Australia. So I wonder if some of those developments have something to do with like the really harsh environment too. Yeah.
Also, food station in Australia,
Yeah.
which is kind of
Huh.
like it's like one of the more popular places to go hunt for feral
Hmm.
in the world, and then like suddenly now they're showing up in New Zealand all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like
I would imagine
they're like a feral goat, but they have like they're not like a goat that you would see like a billy goat or something like that. Like
Yeah.
they're like huge spiraled up. They look like an ibex almost,
I was wondering.
but like more spiral. Like an ibex like grows back.
Yeah.
They grow up in spiral. Like kind of like a
Like
cross between a kudu and
Yeah.
weird like that comes out.
That seems
It's really
yeah.
popular for like the farm.
Hmm. Well, there are a lot of them then.
Yeah.
You know. That's the other
I get mowing down at the outback.
yeah.
Brush all those brush up there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing that killed the thylacines is the Australian government like was really pushing like hunting them. Especially because they, you know, they're carnivores, so like, you know, decimating farms and stuff, right? I think they were even paying people. I think blaming the dingoes is like convenient for people, but like really I think it's probably us, right?
Because I would say that they couldn't have been more or less subjected than like a wolf
Mhm.
population or
Yeah. Yeah. And the dingoes and the thylacines did like occupy Australia together for a long time.
it's kind of like how they
Yeah. Their other marsupial fact is, does anybody know the difference between a possum and an opossum? They're not the same thing. The possums are the
I thought they
possums.
were the same thing.
Yeah,
One have like a rat tail and the other one doesn't or something. It's got like the skin
That was
exposed.
the wrong thing.
they are very different actually. All right. So what we have is technically an opossum. There it is with his babies on the back. They're very cute. They're like ugly cute, right? Yeah. The babies are maybe actually cute. And the adult ones are very creepy looking.
We had an opossum with like electrical stuff at school one morning. They showed the opossum that was a schooling and we didn't have power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite the issue on them with hunting land. When
Yeah.
you come across them at night, they don't back down. They just stand and like you gotta know what's hissing at you
Mm-hmm.
because there's like you piss off a raccoon, which is also not
Mhm.
fun. But the raccoon is usually pretty awesome for some reason.
Are they very dangerous? Because like don't they
They'll
faint?
bite you.
Don't they?
I don't know.
Play
I used to
dead.
play with that.
They used to play
Yeah.
dead, but like it depends on like
where they are.
and then you can tell like a rabies one from not because of like the tendencies they have. So like a rabies one will like stand its ground
Mhm.
and like will slowly like float like on you, where like the others will kind of play dead and smell it.
Yeah.
Every time that I've ever seen them, they tend to like hiss at you at first, and then you're like, "What is that?" And then you go over there, and they just stare. They don't know what. They're just like they just stop moving, and then
So those are the non-rabbit.
they waddle away. They just kind of like if you don't move for a while, they just walk away. I've never had one that like,
Yeah.
and I used to play with them.
Really?
I found them.
Huh.
Obviously, they'll bite you, but
Okay.
I didn't know that they weren't dead. So
Right.
like, I would just move
I'm like, yeah.
because my family used to trap.
Mhm.
So like when I found dead animals, I thought they were just dead animals.
Yeah.
And it was like with the dead animals, probably eating them.
Mhm.
And I like squeezed it by its tail because I think it was the first time I ever saw one.
Mhm.
And then I went back and it was gone. And then I was like, wait. And then my uncle was like, yeah, that probably wasn't dead. And then I was like, oh. And then I realized I probably just got raped. I was also like,
Mhm. But they like eat mosquitoes and stuff, right? So like,
okay,
yeah,
that's my thing.
protect us. Yeah. So this is the opossum. These are possums.
Oh,
You see what I mean about them being very, very different?
they're not even close.
Yeah, no, they're not. So our only native marsupial is the opossum. But it's a completely different like genus. They're not even like really closely related. They're both marsupials. But the possums are pests in Australia, as you can see. They're kind of like, there are lots of different kinds, but some of them are kind of like rats, basically, for Australians. But they're pretty cute, right? Like here we have our little tiny possum here. I think there was like a fairy possum something. So if you're ever on TikTok and someone starts talking about possums and they're Australian, they're like talking about something totally different. Yeah.
I feel like our possums would scare them.
No, I got one once about like someone had a possum living in their ceiling that they would like sometimes feed, and I was like, why would you do that?
Possum or
But
possum?
Feeding
a
around.
possum, right? Like I think it was maybe like a coupon. I don't know. Yeah.
The rat and squirrel. Like, yeah, keep coming back.
Yeah.
Dude, there's some fat squirrels.
They are.
I have a friend who lives in Canada, but like has trained the squirrels to like come, the squirrels and I think chipmunks to like come eat from his hand.
They're kind of
I don't like the squirrels are a menace here.
Dude, they're
But
huge here.
yeah,
Like, I'm saying that there's some rabbits smaller than these things out here
yeah.
in the trees. I looked up one time, I was on my deck, and we have like a tree that kind of overhangs, we walked out the leaves, and I just like saw movement. I thought like a cat got up and like was in this tree.
Mhm.
No, it was just a squirrel looking down at me. And I don't know if it was a piece of our deck or what, but it had like a huge like piece of wood in its mouth. Or, you know,
Yeah, they like chew everything. At least I'm blaming the squirrels for like completely eating my garden, all my tomatoes.
probably.
Chewing up lights, like just like chewing cord
Yeah.
in half.
I think
Like
they're too slow like beavers, so they have to keep like chewing. on
yeah, rodent teeth, yeah,
So
permanently
then
grow
they're
to
just
forever.
constantly mentioning.
Yeah. I looked into it for a while about like how I could stop it and found like for a while they were selling like chili coated wire. So that like they had like a little layer of like hot sauce
The best way to do it,
inside.
because we do it for work for beavers,
Uh-huh.
because they share through aeration lines, they
Uh-huh.
can like, they can't get through it.
Oh no, those squirrels.
Be surprised what, like they see chicken wire and they don't even like mess with it normally.
I would think they would be shiny.
It's like
Mhm.
shiny to them, but they tend to
But
like
if they
come
chew
down,
it,
look
they
at
can't.
it, and then not touch it and then turn off.
Maybe it hurts their teeth.
But like the fast way to stop bees is going through aeration line.
Okay.
Yeah. In the
Good
audience, if you
idea.
ever need to know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's helpful.
There are a lot of.
Okay, so those are marsupials. Do you have marsupial questions? All right, so that means our remaining group are our placental mammals, which include us. And yeah, we're gonna move forward. So we are placental mammals, formerly now known as eutherians. Placental mammals occupy like pretty much everywhere but Australia are the majority of our species, including the ocean. So like dolphins, whales, also placental mammals. Okay. So our divisions of our groups, right? We have our class Mammalia, and then we divide into the monotremes branching off separately. Marsupials and placentals like together are often referred to as therians, which is why there's the U in front of it. When we talk about our placental mammals, U means like true or real or good, something like that. So like the true therians are placental mammals. So if we're looking at differences from the marsupials, we do have similar species kind of paired in placental mammals versus marsupials that have similar like sizes, lifestyles, occupy similar habitats, just on different continents. But the biggest difference is like how developed they are at birth, right? Which is what the pouch is about. So what do you notice about these graphs? What are we looking at here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's not necessarily like terrible to be born that quick because they have this really long extended lactation period where they are caring for the young. So you can see that they're drinking milk, living in that pouch, or coming back to that pouch for a long period of time. Whereas the development at birth is not very developed. And this is true whether you got a big animal or a small animal. So here we have our little mouse here, slightly longer gestation period, right? So like in utero for our placental mouse versus our marsupial mouse. But the lactation period and that like parental care period is much shorter in the placental mammal versus the marsupial here. So it's kind of like a trade-off, kind of making up for it.
I would be curious, when it's talking about lactation, like how I know for like the baby, they spend like a really long time like solely in the pouch.
Mhm.
So that's just,
Oh, like where the division is.
yeah, like
Yeah.
when they start leaving the pouch,
Mhm.
I think it would be interesting to see that.
Like,
because then
Is
you
it
have-
here?
Yeah, like if they're like, yeah, they're still in
Yeah.
there and they're taking care of them a lot longer.
Right.
But are they actually
Right.
living or
Yeah, I
not?
see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't happen to know for these specific species,
I
but
mean,
it would be interesting.
even in general, like
Mhm.
if there's like an average time that the marsupial can spend like solely in the
In the pouch without leaving.
out of the pouch.
Yeah. Yeah. Presumably it's like warm and nice in there.
I mean, yeah, and I would assume like it's similar.
That it's similar,
To, like being set
yeah.
off of the
Yeah.
Like things in the body, but not the body.
Mm-hmm. It's weird,
Yeah,
but
which would be very weird. I don't
yeah,
imagine that
like you could move it.
stack and just
Yeah. Kind of convenient.
it would be very confusing.
Right.
It would like keep itself.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So placental mammals, we've got lots more types. So here we see phylogeny of some of our groups of placental mammals. So here highlighted in the kind of colors, we have the real phylogeny, but like examples of specific species or in their like common English names listed here. And here on the right, we have all of our placental mammal orders. So take a look. I want you to think about like which order you think has the most species, and also just in general, like look over this and tell me whether like anything surprises you or anything's kind of like interesting in these relationships.
That the like both making
Mhm. Yeah, and I've sometimes seen the bat like closer to like the primate.
that would
Yeah,
be like
yeah.
just really the detail, but I kind of learned over time somehow that
Mhm.
they don't tell you.
Mhm. Yeah. The tenrac is actually like a little tiny hedgehog thing. You can see how they even like use
Yeah.
the same
it's kind of
picture.
weird.
That's a more like recent rearrangement there.
Rabbits fall down.
The super primates
Yeah.
here. Yeah, yeah. The rabbits over there.
I can kind of see that though, just because it's old amount of
Mhm. Yeah, the part where they're close to the rodents makes more sense.
very odd to know that like the size that you see like the total like size difference is like the three afro
Afrotheres. Yeah, Afro for Africa.
yeah
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that like here they have the pangolin, Pholidota, as like a sister group to carnivores, which carnivores, like when people say carnivores, like sometimes they mean the feeding style, but that actually is in the mammalian order Carnivora. Includes like dogs, cats, bears. There used to be bear dogs, which is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, they're actually quite closely related, apparently.
are they like do they look pink or
I think so. Yeah, so I would have expected the pangolins to be like over here with like our sloths and armadillos, right? I haven't looked at a picture of them in a while, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, so there are periodic rearrangements of this tree as we get more and different types of data. Um, and every time there's a rearrangement, there gets to be arguments about whether that makes sense and why that makes sense. But you can see why if you made a tree based on just like what looked most similar to you, this like might not be what you would come up with looking at these different groups. So which of these orders do you think has the most? Mhm. Yeah, it's actually overall going to be those rodents, right? We've got lots and lots of rodents when we look at our different mammal species. So also surprisingly different, lots of different bats. Chiroptera are our bats. So overall, that's giving us what, like 62% between our rodents and our bats. Yeah, we've got a fair number of primates and carnivores. Not all that many marsupials, right? So this is mainly occupied by our placental mammals. Our okay, our artiodactyls are like cows and pigs and stuff. So we got okay. Yeah, mostly little crawling things. Yeah, yeah. So this is just a note. We got placental mammals occupying all our different types of feeding habits. Carnivores can sometimes mean their eating habit, but if we say carnivora, that's a separate, more specific kind of statement about specifically the mammalian order they're in. So this is feeding habits. We got some non-carnivorine groups in here too. And like our bears are in the order Carnivora, but they are omnivores. Nice and convenient how they did that for us. Okay, so we are going to move forward so that we can get into the modern day and pick out our order of placental mammals, which are primates. So looking at some of these examples and just in general what you know in daily life, what do you think makes something a primate? What are some common characteristics going to be?
Gotta be like a developed
Brain development.
yeah, we gotta
Yeah.
be the size, like that.
Yeah, we definitely have some brain development in mammals in general. Like mammalian brains are larger and more complex than in other groups like reptiles and fish, right? Have really little tiny brains.
That's what he's saying human. That's like,
Yeah, and what do we mean when we say that, right? Like,
Which one? Get the, like, get the shoulder joint, or like, yeah.
so maybe some joint stuff, right? We think we have maybe some movement. We got some hand, thumb stuff. Good idea, good idea. Get there. Yeah, so hands and feet do like make a difference, but we will have some variations here, right? So here we're looking at like a lemur hand and foot. Foot is crazy to me, right? But that is like opposable foot thumb, right? Our tarsier, similar thing going on. Spider monkeys, first gorillas. So we can actually see a fair amount of grasping in the foot in other primates. Overall, our like best characteristics to kind of go for are, oh, the numbering got wacky here, but there are 5 things. I'll change those numbers. So yeah, we have some changes to the skeleton, specifically related to locomotion, right? Like if you think about like a rat or a squirrel, their limbs are kind of like, I guess they stuck, right? But they're less flexible, and when they're quadrupedal, they're just in general kind of locked into that position. So we see some changes in the skeleton in primates for longer, more freely moving limbs. We definitely do see an increase in brain size. Another cool thing we see in primates is stereoscopic vision. What do you think that could mean? What do you think stereoscopic vision has to do with?
The ability to see.
Sort of. It also has to do with like the position of the eyes, right? Like for primates, the eyes are like in front, and you have like ability to see depth and binocular vision. And then yeah, we can also see color particularly well. So that's also a visual adaptation. They're faces, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So this often is suggested to have to do with like kind of like the life habitat for primates, that we're like kind of adapted for like looking for things in trees and fruits and stuff. In prey species, you'll often see like in deer, right? Like the eyes are really out to the side, right? So that they have like a really good field of vision to see anything coming towards them. And that's somewhat true for predators too, right? You want to be able to sense that movement, but for us, it's really important to kind of see depth and stuff. I think the thing that makes them really human-like, at least to me, in addition to that eye position, is the hands, right? Like as you were saying, right? That thumb and that hand structure, that's the thing that creeps me out most about like raccoons, right? like their hands are too human, I don't like it. But those grasping hands with the opposable thumb are particularly characteristic of primates, as well as nails. Like instead of having claws, like having flat nails, that's particular to primates. Okay. Okay. So if we're looking at the way these groups are separated out, right? Our primates are in order, they're the order we're in. And here's the arrangement of our, I'm just gonna say groups. Our genera, some of these are species, some of them aren't, some of them are larger groups. So for our last common ancestor in the primate lineage, we're pretty far back. The first thing we see branching off are our lemurs. So lemurs are mainly in Madagascar. So they're quite different looking. And they're very good at like hopping around. Also in Madagascar is where we find those tarsiers. So we've been using that big-eyed tarsier picture for our example of early mammals, but that tarsier actually is a primate, pretty much. Our next groups that we kind of separate out are Old World versus New World monkeys. So monkeys actually mean something specific. It doesn't just mean primates. So those are two very specific groups. And then we have our apes. So we're going to have things like gibbons, which we will not have talked about all that much, but like orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and us are in this ape group. Okay. And our division from the chimpanzee, which is our closest relative genetically, is dated at about like 6 to 7 million years ago. In terms of like terminology, sometimes terminology here can get tricky. So pretty much everything that's not on Madagascar is referred to as anthropoids. Our apes as a group are actually referred to as hominoid. So that looks like it means human, but really it kind of just means like our most human-like group within the primates. We then have like hominins, which are us and like our most recent fossil relatives. And so we end up in our own genus, Homo, and then our own species, Homo sapiens. So within our order, mostly what we saw on that picture were our anthropoids. So that's actually a suborder. The tarsiers and the lemurs are in their own suborders. So the lemurs are formally referred to as prosimians, and tarsiers get their own group, Tarsiriformes. So tarsier-shaped things, tarsier-formed things. So within our suborder, the anthropoids, we have our Old and New World monkeys. So monkeys are specific things. We have those two groups, Old World versus New World, and then our ape group, and then our humans basically within that. So hominoids include the humans and our other apes, the gibbons, the orangutans, gorillas, and chimpanzees. And sometimes we'll refer to great apes. When we do that, we're really referring to orangutans, gorillas, chimps, and humans as the group usually. For our Old World versus New World monkeys, looking at these pictures, can you see any differences or actually first, when we say Old World and New World, what are we talking about there? Uh, where would you be?
You like,
So this is
like
a,
it's gotta be like something facial structure wise.
this is so Old World and New World cares about like physically where they're found, like on what continent.
So
So like World War
what
Africa.
continent goes
Yeah, Old World is Africa, pretty much. Yeah. But like Africa and stuff connected to it, right? So like you also the monkeys in like Asia are also considered like Old World monkeys. So in history, we have our primates really developing around Africa, and the continents were shaped differently. So there were like lots of kind of islands in the area around the Mediterranean that were like nice and warm. So that's where like apes develop and stuff.
Is Madagascar considered a world map?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So New World are the continents that separated. So basically the Americas. Although the monkeys are found pretty specifically in South and Central. Um, any ideas about how they got there? I think this theory is crazy. So on the time. How do you think they would get? How would you get from like Africa to South America?
So I mean, close enough to the
The going theory is that it has to do with giant floods creating like, you know how we have like the basically like a trash barge out in the middle of the Pacific?
Yeah.
The theory is that they rafted there, right? They like got stuck on a bunch of like branches and stuff in the middle of the ocean coming out of the African rivers, and we're like living on that barge of debris and eventually ended up in South America. Um,
So like how New World are we talking?
So how
Is that
long
part
is
of
that?
I know. This is why I find it a very funny theory. It's getting more believable now that we have that garbage patch. But
I mean,
See, I would think
I
like
can see that.
trade.
Yeah.
Like I would think like 1300s, like the Spaniards moving.
we have a fossil record way older than that, is why it's not that. Yeah.
I mean, I could definitely see it being that. I would just be curious, like, how long would that take? Like, where
Yeah.
they live, like, were they
Like how long did they have to live
that
on the
little barge thing, or
Yeah.
were they just like chilling there for a week and then
Yeah.
they ended up? Cool.
I have so many questions about that. No answers for you.
Is there any evidence like of like a land bridge? Like how you have like the land bridge like that's supposedly connected like Russia.
Not between the like right places.
Okay.
Yeah.
How far away would those continents have been at the
Okay, that time.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, like whether they were closer.
How long did they spend on that?
Right.
Did they?
Because that makes it like more or less believable.
Was it like a whole
right?
generation they were just chilling there, or was it like just like
Some freak event.
yeah, and there was
Yeah.
like there have to be examples then that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
produce? Wouldn't there need to be like a population to be able to establish themselves? Not like necessarily huge, but just,
Enough for it to not be too inbred.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unless it was like multiple.
Multiple waves, like
Multiple
happening multiple times.
instances. Yeah, they're like, oh.
But then it would also need to be the same species. You
Like
know?
stuff, we've been here for like 2 months. And then they just start
Yeah.
colonizing.
Yeah. It's very true. But they are very different, the monkeys that we found in like regardless of like how they got there and how they managed them.
Theories that they just develop on their own.
Like
Like,
ancestral species on each continent and
Yeah.
separately developed.
separately developed.
There are lots of theories out there, so I'm sure someone's suggested it. I think it must be the case that like our fossil record for the old world monkeys is way better, and possibly like genetic relationships
Sure.
tying them together.
Keeping the
But-
first portable in the farm.
Yeah, but yeah, very, very, very not questionable, right? Because I'm sure people have thought about it deeply, but like on the face of it, that's a funny idea. So here are some of the differences between our old world monkeys and our new world monkeys. So take a second to kind of like look at this and tell me what of this like do you think you could identify decently? Because we do have a technical long list, but what do you think you could do? Mhm.
I say the nose and
Yeah. Yeah, I think nose, thumbs, and maybe like the tails, right? Like a prehensile tail means they can like move it and grab stuff with it, versus a non-grasping tail is gonna like look really different if you have one.
Seems like these are larger and these are smaller
Hmm.
in terms of like where they're living, their habitat wise. Most of these characters are like present day.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, like
on
this
the
stuff.
ground.
Yeah.
So they,
Yeah, and if you think about where they're living, right, like we've got lots of kind of rainforests in South America, the New World, versus we've got like lots of savannas, and plains and stuff in the Old World. Yeah, that's cool. So here's a short summary. So of some of the more obvious characteristics. I just wanted to point out to you that there like are lots of differences that we can look at, but here we can see the differences between those like noses on here. We got the tails. Sitting pads would basically be like kind of like lumps on the butt. They do have different numbers of teeth, which people do care about a lot, but we're not going to count teeth in the plastic class. And yeah, the New World monkeys are very heavily like arboreal, very heavily like adapted for living in trees for the most part. Yeah, but do you know what that means? Yeah, specifically trees. Yeah, trees.
I never actually heard that.
Yeah. So moving into our anthropoids, this is going to pull us back to that phylogeny real quick. All right, so moving forward into our anthropoids, we're now moving actually towards our hominoids. So we got gibbons, right? And these are sometimes referred to as like lesser apes. So they're included if you say apes overall, but not if you say great apes. They've got like long arms, they're good at jumping, but they are relatively closely related to our group. Moving in closer to our closest relatives, we have the orangutan, the gorilla, and the chimpanzee. So Hongidae is named for Pongo, our orangutan. Orangutans are kind of cool. They like climb with all four of their limbs very slowly, which I like. The gorillas and the chimpanzees are relatively closely related in terms of their skeleton. They do look very similar and they have similar kind of habits, with gorillas being larger and their diet particularly being quite different. Yeah. And here we have the relationships within the great apes. So our hominoids are the great apes overall. So this was originally constructed based on anatomy, but now we also have molecular data to kind of back this up and try and support this using a separate type of data, which we like because that helps us confirm hypotheses and make sure that like we have multiple separate lines of evidence for something, then we're more likely to believe that it's true rather than if we're just like looking at one particular view in one study. So we will leave it there for today and we'll talk about some human stuff